Good morning, Mr. Slager. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chairperson.
It's 10 o'clock. We should start at 10 o'clock.
Yes, Chair.
Whoever needs to go to wherever, they must go before 10. 10 o'clock, we must start. Okay, let's start.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, we have Dr. Naidu, Pet Naidu, who will be the first witness today. Dr. Pet Naidu is ready to take the oath of affirmation, Chairperson.
Please administer the oath of affirmation.
Mr. Naidu, will you be taking the oath of the affirmation? Which one of the two will you be taking? The oath?
The microphone is on.
Thank you.
Please state your full names for the record.
Padmanathan Naidu.
Do you have any...
I'm sorry, I'm not sure that we can hear. You might have to take your
Thank you,
mask off.
I'll put it.
Yeah, okay.
My full name for the record, Padmanathan Naidu.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No, ma'am.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God. Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated, Dr.
Thank you,
Naidu.
Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, Mr. Naidu will testify mainly on the transactions and will give the Chairperson a background in regard to his appointment on the board. And the transaction is mainly the 1.6 billion rand submission that was made to the board in December 2015.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Naidu, thank you for assisting the Commission.
Thank you.
Chairperson, we will use Eskom Bundle 16, Exhibit U 36.
Thank you. I've got it.
You have it as well, Dr. Naidu. Dr. Naidu has provided the Commission with 3 affidavits, Chairperson. The first of which is found on page 3 of that Eskom Bundle 16. Dr. Naidu, we follow the black pagination on the left-hand corner, top left-hand corner.
Top left. Got it.
Yes. So that's the first one, Chairperson.
Yes.
And once I've identified them, Chair, I will then ask leave to have them admitted.
Yeah.
I'll take them one by one. Dr. Naidu, on page 3, I think you are now on page 4. Go
Page
back.
3, yeah.
Just go back. Page, yeah.
On page 3.
Is that page 3?
This is page 1, but this is page 3 and page 1.
Right at the top.
Use the left or right?
Yeah, the left.
The left.
The black pagination.
Eskom 16.3.
That's right.
Right, I've got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Forget for a moment the 003. Just
Okay.
concentrate on the number
Thank you.
3. So that's the one affidavit of Padmanathan Naidu. That affidavit goes until page 27, Dr. Naidu.
Yes.
And there is a signature there by the deponent.
Confirmed?
Is that your signature?
Yes, sir.
On the 30th of November 2020. The date is right next to the signature. Go back to the signature page,
Yeah. Getting there.
which is page 27.
Yeah. 26, 27. Correct.
There. You confirm.
Confirmed.
Thank you, Dr. Knight. Chairperson, I'll beg leave to have this affidavit admitted as Exhibit U 36.1.
Okay, got it.
.1.
The affidavit of Dr. Pathmanathan Naidu, starting at page 3, will be admitted as Exhibit U 36.1.
Thank you. Then Dr. Naidu on page 28.
Thank you, I've got it.
There is another affidavit. It runs up to page 47.
Correct, I've got it.
You see the signature there? You confirm that to be your signature?
Yes, sir, confirmed. This is my
The
signature.
affidavit dated 6 October 2020.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Chairperson, I beg leave to have this affidavit admitted as Exhibit U36.2.
The affidavit of Dr. Pathmanathan Naidu, starting at page 28, is admitted as Exhibit U 36.2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Lastly, Dr. Naidu, the affidavit on page 47.1.
Correct.
You see that?
Correct.
That affidavit ends on page 47.22.
Correct.
You confirm the signature there to be yours?
Confirmed.
The affidavit is dated 7 September 2020.
Correct.
You confirm the contents thereof.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I beg leave to have it admitted as Exhibit U36.3.
And the affidavit of Dr. Pathmanathan Naidu, starting at page 47.1, is admitted as Exhibit U 36.3.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Naidu, the issues of suspensions have been extensively traversed before the Commission. What we would like you to focus on is really on the issues of transactions, which is the prepayments decisions that were made by the board relative to either OCM, Optimum, or relative to Tegeta.
Thank you.
Yes. But just by way of introduction, we have seen from your affidavit that you confirm your appointment on the board of Eskom in December 2014.
Confirmed.
Yes. Can you tell the chairperson whether that was your first service on the board of Eskom? Was that your first appointment to serve on the board of Eskom?
Yes, sir. First appointment to serve on the board of Eskom. Correct.
And as you speak, yes, face to the chairperson. Thank you. Had you served on any other board before that?
Yes, sir. Chairman, my career with Eskom commenced with the Electricity Supply Commission. This was in the early 80s. And I concluded my career with Eskom in 2010 as an employee. During that period, I served on the boards as Eskom representative on the board of Motraco, the Mozambique Transmission Company, on Wesco as the Western Power Corridor Company, and I also served in the capacity as official on the Eskom Holdings Board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Naidu. Dr. Naidu, did you have any relations or interactions with your board members, any of your board members prior to your appointment on the Eskom board?
Certainly not. No one.
No one of them.
No one.
With Mr. Salim Essa?
No, sir. I don't even know the gentleman.
You don't even know him. With any of the Gupta brothers?
Yes, sir. Atul Gupta. Almost 2 decades ago, 2003, I was a member of the Eskom delegation that accompanied then President Mbeki on his inaugural state visit to India. In India, Mr. Atul Gupta, an Indian national, introduced himself to us as an investor in South Africa. He was coming to invest in ICT, and he had then at that stage launched Sahara Computers. And he invited us as the business delegation to come and have a factory visit, Sahara Computers in Midrand. When we returned to South Africa, he had scheduled a visit for us to visit his factory. We attended that visit, and he conducted that visit personally. So that was the second time I met him. That was in 2003, as I documented in the affidavit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Did you have any interaction with him during your appointment, during your service on the Eskom board?
Certainly not, certainly not. Even during 2003, I had no interaction with him. It was in a public setting. He had introduced himself, and even at the factory visit, it was in a public setting. We had no interaction.
Any prior interaction or relations with Minister Lynn Brown?
Certainly none. I met Minister Brown first time when I attended when I was inducted into the board.
With the former President Jacob Zuma?
Certainly not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Let me just give you a sequence of how I would like you to lead your evidence. There is what has been referred to as the cooperation agreement concluded between Eskom and OCM in 2014 with the fourth addendum, paving the way to amending the agreement between the two entities. That's on the one hand. On the other, then it will be the submission that is made in December 2015 regarding a prepayment decision. Let's start with the cooperation agreement. Because the cooperation agreement, as you would recall, it was an endeavor between Eskom and OCM to revise the terms of the agreement then existing. That cooperation agreement came to the BTC on the 15th of April 2015. The BTC did not decide it. It referred the matter to the board. Were you a member of the BTC at the time, April 2015?
No, sir.
You were not?
No.
So the matter then came to the board on the 23rd of April 2015. You recall that? You recall that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. The board too did not decide the matter. And I would like you to briefly tell the chairperson, why did the board not decide the matter? And what did the board instead do with the matter? In the meeting of the 23rd of April 2015.
Thank you, Advocate. Chair, Advocate's referring to an operational document between Eskom as the company and OCM as the supplier. I had no details of the operational content of the agreement, or no part in its structure or in its promotion. Chair, I want to reflect a little bit on Optimum Coal Mine, on Hendrina Power Station, and give you a little bit of a background, if I may, Advocate. Thank you, Chair. Chair, Hendrina Power Station, as you know, Chair, sorry, I was an employee of Eskom, so I've been to Hendrina many times. Hendrina Power Station is in the category of lowest cost producers of electrical energy. It's in the company of Koeberg, the nuclear station, in the company of Karabasa, the hydroelectric station that brings us power from Mozambique. Very, very low cost power, bulk power. The station was built in the 70s, and its coal supply agreement then commenced with the mine itself. And the coal at Hendrina is on the ground. You literally scoop up the ground and you feed it into the boilers. That's how simple it is. It's continuous operation, 24/7, 365, for many decades. So over the time period, almost 50 years, it has generated a lot of electricity for South Africa. Lowest cost electricity, and that's what gave Eskom that sort of lowest cost position. And it was very much an agreement that benefited all parties. Eskom, the mine, the community. Everyone was a win-win type agreement. The design of the power station of Hendrina was such that it consisted of 10 machines of 200 megawatts, so small capacity, but lots of them, so that it can take in this sort of very, very low quality coal, virtually the ground chair, and make electricity out of it. And during the term of its agreement, there were one or two addendums attached to that agreement. And one of the addendums I recall was the addendum around hardship. The supplier can say to Eskom, I've got hardship, and he can declare hardship, because the price is very, very low. And then Eskom, in its methodology of setting up the mine, had initially prepaid for all the capital infrastructure. So that's where that whole prepayment concept comes from. So the mine supplies the coal, the capital infrastructure is all prepaid, and in one of those addendums, Chair, Eskom allowed the mine to export the higher grade coal to international markets or to other markets so that they could make more cash. And that gave Hendrina the position of...
And if I can ask,
please do, Chair.
Was it like part of the deal that you will charge us low prices, but in return, we will allow you to make money
Agreed.
With the export section
Agreed.
of the mine?
Agreed.
So to make up for whatever losses you may suffer on the domestic side?
Agreed.
Okay.
And that gave the mine a export allocation quota at Richards Bay. On the MLO Richards Bay coal line, that high-grade coal will then go into the export markets. Eskom made that allowance. And that's part of the one of the addendums to the agreement. But again, the price was kept low. And then, Chair, as the agreement was coming towards a closure, I recall the agreement was scheduled to end December 2018. So this is a development now in 2015. And the Optimum Coal Mine then said, I need a higher price of coal. They want to reset the base price because there's a potential that a new agreement could be reached post-2018 for another 10 years, 20 years, 30 years at a higher price. And I was part of that discussion at the Investment and Finance Committee. And I knew a little bit of the history of Eskom. And I said, no ways, we can't adjust that price. Because then we're changing the design of the power station, we're changing the whole model that we've put on the table. When 2018 concludes, you will have an opportunity for both parties to decide on a new contract going forward. And Eskom can decide whether it still wants to operate Hendrina or don't operate it. So that was basically where the push came from. And where the resistance from Eskom came in terms of not allowing the higher coal price.
Well, the hardship clause, as you understand it, or as you understood it at the time, was it meant to cater for a situation where it would appear, for example, that Glencore didn't do a due diligence before taking this contract over. And it looks like later on, when it was complaining about the coal price being too low and suffering hardship, that seems to be, at least in part, because it didn't do what it's supposed to have done from the beginning. Because one would have thought that if you want to take over somebody else's contract such as this, one of the things you would look at, particularly when you talk about such a long-term contract, is there a provision in the contract for the escalation or the increase of the price annually or at whatever intervals? Because the problem seems to have been that the parties were locked into this price that had been determined a long time before.
Yes, Chair.
And then when it complained about hardship, one gets the impression that if you had done your homework and you had raised this issue, you wouldn't be in this situation.
Certainly.
But you can enlighten me. Maybe there's something I don't understand, but that was one of my queries about Glencore's OCM's so-called hardship.
Yes, Chair. Chair, if we reflect, it was a very long-term contract. If it's 2018, built in the 70s, it's almost a 50-year type contract. It's coming towards the end now, 2018. It's almost sort of days to ending now. The boilers at Hendrina, as I said earlier, Chair, they were designed to burn this ground, literally, not coal, call it the ground, the earth, Mother Earth. And that whole model was packaged around it. If you change that model, then the whole thing falls apart. And again, Hendrina was a cash machine for Eskom. It made a lot of cash for Eskom, a lot of electricity sales. And you don't want to disturb that model, Chair. That's basically what it was. And that's why that price was fixed long term. And again, this hardship clause was introduced, and an addendum to that effect was introduced to give the supplier relief, export on the coal market. And around 2015, Chair, the external coal market also collapsed. So you could see where Glencore's position was, or the shareholder of OCM position was. He was not making money on the export market, not making money on the domestic market, incurring costs. And again, saying to Eskom, I need more cash, I need more cash. And that sets the basis for that prepayment that didn't arrive thereafter. See, that set the foundation for that.
Yes, but is your answer that the hardship that OCM, while it was under Glencore, complained about, wasn't largely due to it not having done its homework?
Agreed, Chair.
Yes.
That is very clear.
Yes.
That is very clear.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that.
Yes, okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Siliga?
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Naidu, so you're saying that hardship experienced by OCM and the request by OCM for an increase in the purchase price would have set the groundwork for the prepayment?
Correct, Chair. In fact, there was another development before prepayment. That was business rescue. The shareholders of OCM then put the company into business rescue. And now we're dealing with business rescue practitioners. And again, the message conveyed to Eskom, jobs will be at stake. We are going to stop the production, people are going to lose jobs. And again, when I reflected on that particular position of the jobs, Chair, I said, the power station's been there for 50 odd years. It's created jobs for the community. It's a matter of days before it's going to stop working. And again, it's done its share for the community. So let's not make jobs a particular issue to focus on. Let us focus on the national grid security and make sure the machines are working, make sure there's continuity of operations. And again, Chair, during that business rescue operations, unknown to the business rescue practitioners, Eskom had been in deep distress. Load shedding was at its all-time high. There was a lot of disturbance within the operational end of Eskom. But unknown to them, we had already commenced the recovery of Eskom generation. And Eskom generation energy availability factor was already on the recovery. We could accommodate 1 or 2 machines being disturbed. Because remember, these are small units, 200 megawatts. So if you do bump it, you're going to bump 1 200 or 2 200s, but not all of them. And we could accommodate that disturbance on the national grid without disturbing security of supply. We knew that, and that's why we sort of got into a little bit of an entrenched position regarding this price of coal. And we said, we'd like to hold on to this, whatever is in the contract, you renegotiate at end of December 2018. And we feeling comfortable, we'll manage national grid security. We're very happy with that.
Now, are you talking about the period where OCM / Glencore was pushing for an increase on the coal price?
Correct.
Is that what you are saying?
Correct. So they were pushing on the increase of the coal price, and then simultaneously they throw in business rescue, simultaneously they throw in loss of jobs to the community. So it's compounding itself. It's getting more difficult. But again, at that time, Chair, I was very confident that we'll maintain national grid security. That was always my reference. Are we going to hold national grid security before we break?
Now, I asked you a question earlier on, and you gave an answer, but I think, although the information you gave me was, I think, useful, it didn't go to the question, namely, whether the situation that Glencore/OCM found itself in when it invoked the hardship clause was a situation for which the hardship clause had been created. No. In other words, did it fit within, as you understood it, the kind of hardship that was contemplated?
Yes, Chair. In fact, the hardship clause, I think, was initiated right at commencement of the agreement. It never really pertained to any particular supplier.
Yes, yes.
It was there. It was embedded in the original agreement.
Yes, yes.
Because of Eskom holding the price of coal delivered to its lowest level, and Eskom agreeing, we will prepay for the capital infrastructure to mine the coal and deliver it to the power station.
But of course, ultimately, OCM didn't pursue the arbitration process to the end, arising out of the invocation of the hardship clause. As I recall, if you invoke the hardship clause, if the parties meet and can't reach agreement, you go to arbitration.
Yes.
Is it correct that Eskom's position was, okay, you have invoked the hardship clause, we can go through it and let the arbitrator decide?
No, Chair, it didn't go to arbitration. I think Glencore...
No, but what I'm saying is, I think you agree, and I wanted you to confirm, that once a party to that coal supply agreement had invoked a hardship clause, the hardship clause,
yes,
the route ultimately, if the parties could not reach agreement, is arbitration.
Agreed, correct.
Yes, but I'm saying, as I recall, the matter ultimately never reached arbitration.
Never, correct.
But I'm asking whether Eskom's position was that you, OCM, have invoked the hardship clause, and we are happy for that to take its course.
Correct.
And so to speak, we will see what happens. But
Agreed.
It's your right to take that route.
Agreed. Correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. So OCM, to the extent that they may complain about Eskom having taken a hard line on the issue on their request or proposal for an increase of the coal price on the basis that they were suffering hardship, to the extent that Glencore/OCM criticized Eskom's hard line, one answer from Eskom would be, but if you thought we were unjustified in taking the hard line that we took, you had a remedy.
Agreed.
Namely, to pursue arbitration up to the end.
Agreed.
Because if you pursued arbitration and the arbitrator found against us as Eskom, we would comply with the award of the arbitrator.
Agreed.
You didn't pursue that line.
Agreed.
And it may well be that the reason you didn't pursue it because you realized that you were not going to have a strong case.
Agreed, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, and I want to also add, Chair, had the arbitrator ruled in the favor of the supplier rather than in Eskom's favor, we would have rearranged the operation of the power station such that we reduced the quantity of coal that we take in. We would have shared that load across the fleet of power stations.
Okay.
So instead of burning X volumes at Y price, we would have adjusted the volumes to burn at Z price so that we keep the total cost to the company constant.
Well, I want to make sure I understand that what you have just said, because I want to understand whether it amounts to saying we would not comply with the arbitrator's award if he or she found in favor of OCM, or whether it says we would comply. We just would need to make certain arrangements in order to handle the situation.
Agreed. We will comply, Chair,
Yeah.
but we will make operational requirements to handle the impact on the company.
The operational arrangements that you would make, would they not result in OCM's victory in the arbitration award being an empty victory?
Chair, yeah, it could result in them seeing it as a victory, but in terms of the net or the total cost to either company, it will be constant.
Yes, well, we might not need to look into it further, but
Yes.
I'm concerned whether you would effectively be saying, well, let's go to arbitration. If you win, we know how we'll fix you.
That's the name of the game, Chair. That's you playing the game.
You see, that's what Eskom was planning. That's why they were saying, okay, go to arbitration.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Slade.
Yes. Dr. Naidu, let's go back to the meeting of the 23rd. So the cooperation agreement is before the board, and the terms which are proposed in terms of the fourth addendum. Just tell the chairperson how the board dealt with that matter.
Yeah, Chair, if I may, I think the decision that there was not taken at board.
Yes.
Was it not transferred out again
It was transferred to
the chief executive?
the chief,
That's
new
correct.
chief executive.
To the new chief executive,
Yeah, that was Mr. Brown Molefe.
Mr. Molefe, correct.
Yeah. So this is a meeting on the 23rd of April. It is at the same meeting that the board approves the secondment of Mr. Molefe
Yes, Chair.
to be with effect from the 20th of April.
Yes, Chair.
So he's new at Eskom.
Correct.
Yeah. Is there a reason why the matter was not referred to the team, back to the team that was negotiating the transaction?
Yes, Chair, it'll go back to the team, but via the chief executive. It's an operational accountability. Sorry, Chair, it's an operational accountability. It goes back into the organization, and the point of entry into the organization is the chief executive. Yeah. That's what it was. And again, as the earlier discussion we had, there's lots of complexities around it. Thank you, Chair.
So we've seen from various affidavits of board members who are yet to testify, including yourselves, that there was an expectation that Mr. Molefe will come back to the board on that issue,
I would expect so, sir.
that he would report back to
He
the
would
board.
report back, yeah.
The question was then asked, which you addressed in your affidavit, were you aware as the board, well, let me ask you, did Mr. Molefe come back to the board? Do you have any recollection of him coming back to the board?
Specifically, no, sir, but the chief executive does report to the board on a monthly basis. At a board meeting, there's a chief executive's report. I'm not sure whether it was contained in that report.
Okay. Let me ask you this then. We have seen from the evidence that he terminated the negotiation and cooperation agreement with OCM. Was the board aware of that termination?
No, sir.
Prior to it happening, you were not aware?
No, that's an operational accountability.
Yeah. Now, so there is, the parties are trying to negotiate a new agreement, the new terms, increase the price. The matter is given to Mr. Molefe, who is just arrived at Eskom. He ultimately terminates that process in July 2015. You're saying the board is not aware of it. Can you recall when does the board become aware of it? Or you personally?
Chair,
If you can't recall, you can't recall.
No, I think the best I could give you, Chair, is At the Investment and Finance Committee, when I chaired that committee, there was this issue of the prepayment. And in that prepayment conversation, my best understanding was that Glencore was still the owner of OCM. And I did make my comment in that conclusion of that meeting that given the two parties had come to some agreement, Eskom and OCM, that the chairman of Eskom and the chairman of Glencore should make a joint statement to that effect. I've made that and I put it in my records.
Okay. Okay, Chair, that chairperson, that accelerates the matter. So let's go into that. Dr.
Right.
Pednadu, let's go into it. So the termination is made of the negotiation process between the two parties, Eskom and OCM. In December 2015, the 8th of December 2015, the board gets an email from Ms. Suzanne Daniels.
Correct.
About the request for the board to consider a submission for a prepayment of 1.6 billion rand.
Correct.
Now, that submission, and that's where you are.
Yes.
Tell the chairperson what you understood the submission to request a prepayment to be made to.
Right. Thank you, Chair. Chair, this did not come to a formal meeting. We got a request electronically. It was an emergency request. It came through electronically, and I was a member of the Investment and Finance Committee. That's where it came to. And the chairperson of the Investment and Finance Committee recused himself. And I found myself in the chair, now chairing this meeting, not in a formal setting, but on a round-robin resolution. And I looked at the request of prepayment for coal from Optimum Coal Mine. And the prepayment value was 1.68 billion rands.
Was how much?
1.68 billion.
Oh, what? Billion,
yes,
yeah.
that was the amount. And when I looked at it and I looked at the submission that was tabled, it motivated, firstly, there's agreement between Eskom and OCM. Remember, they had a strained relationship. They have now come to an agreement. They're happy together. OCM requires cash in advance to give them liquidity so that they can get on with their business. Deliver the coal to Indrina Power Station, plus also take the coal and sell it to the export market, and they'll make more money out of it. That was their sort of motivation. And they also said they're in the process of taking on more black economic empowerment in terms of their contractual relationships within, or shareholder relationships within OCM itself. And they've got some support. And if we could assist them with this 1.68 billion rands, we'll ensure security of delivery of coal to Indrina Power Station. Also, they extended the delivery to another National Grid power station, Arnott. And they also said they will secure the jobs of the people. So when we looked at all that, we said, prepayment is certainly an industry practice. Eskom does this all the time. Not just on the coal side, even on the electricity sales side, you can be a prepaid customer to buy electricity. And when we looked at it, we said, there's security in terms of that 1.68 billion. There's security in the inventory. As I said, the coal is at Indrina, it's not anywhere else, it's right outside. We've got security on that inventory against that 1.68 billion. And we said, the 1.68 billion prepayment would be absorbed by operations within a few weeks, literally. So that will be used up. And it's a win-win situation for Eskom and for OCM. And it is in that response, I said towards the end of my note, this is a positive development given the distress of where we're coming from. And I think the chairman of Eskom and the chairman of Glencore should make a joint statement to this effect, that we both came together and we're working together.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Ferdinand. So, Dr. Naidu, your understanding was that OCM, which is one owned by Glencore, was going to get this prepayment.
Yes. Yes.
The relationship has, the soured relationship is now revitalized.
Agreed.
And we are going to assist OCM come out of business rescue, save jobs, supply Indrina, supply Arnott.
Agreed.
And so on. So that's the IFC.
So was it's quite clear from what you say what you have just said, that as far as you were concerned, your intention, and you may go further and say, you think it was the intention of all the board members, I'm not sure, you can deal with that just now. Your intention was that Eskom was granting, or the board was approving prepayment to OCM under Glencore,
Correct.
and not to Tegeta.
Not to Tegeta.
Yes.
No, there's no Tegeta in the picture.
Yes, yes,
And Chair, this was done in my apartment in Parktown. I'm at home.
yes.
I'm not in a boardroom.
Okay,
And that's why I wrote down those points and I communicated that to my fellow colleagues. I said,
Yes.
colleagues, this is the reason why I'm giving disapproval. And I
Yes.
was now in the chair of the Investment and Finance
Yeah.
Committee.
okay,
That's the reason I tabled that.
okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, just by way of reference, Dr. Naidu, maybe you should go to Eskom Bundle 18, because that note he's referring to is to be found there. 18 bracket A,
18,
bracket A.
please help.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh,
Somebody must assist him to
Thank you.
get the right bundle.
Yes. That's
Thank you.
18 bracket A, Chairperson, page.
They'll identify the bundle and give it to you, Dr. Naidu.
is it this one?
What is the page, Mr. Selaga?
That's page 2.
That one, no?
Let's start at 281.
This one.
Page 281.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Right, I've got it.
You've got it, Doctor. Yeah, stay on 281.
Okay, you got it on
Yeah,
the page.
because I want to refer you to 281 and 286
And 286.
and 286.
Okay, I've got it.
Yes.
Right, I've got it.
You've got
Yes, that's my note, D9. Correct.
Yes.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
So the Chairperson, the document on page 286, Dr. Naidu as well, that's the submission that came before the board, also served before the IFC. If you
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah,
Correct.
you've seen it.
Correct, yeah.
And page
Which
281.
document are you starting with? 281?
281,
281,
Chairperson.
Okay, all right.
He's just confirmed.
Confirmed.
Is the submission that served before the IFC and the board,
Okay.
motivating for the prepayment.
Yeah.
But the submission that he has confirmed as having served in both, is it the one at 281 or one at 286?
Both.
Both?
Both.
Okay, all right.
Chair, 286 is a different document.
Oh,
Yeah, so this was my document that I sent,
yes.
my response.
oh, okay, all right. Okay, let's deal with
Advocate,
one at a time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably shouldn't we start with his document, but you
Okay.
would know. Yeah.
Okay, he's confirmed the submission. Let's go to his document. Your document, Dr. Naidu, on 286.
Yes,
Yes.
confirmed.
Because you were explaining to the chairperson.
Correct, this is exactly what I explained.
I'm sorry, Mr. Selaga. Maybe you are right. We should start with the submission because as I understand it, his note was made after.
That's right.
Correct, after the
Yes, yeah.
submission.
Let's start with what persuaded him, what told him what this was about.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Dr. Naidu, you understand that question to the
Yes.
of the chairperson. Yeah, you can simply just point out to the chairperson what
Why I
made
went
you.
in that direction. Yes.
Yeah.
Chair, on page 283, there's 3.2.1 highlighted yellow. I think this was my highlighting of yellow.
Oh,
Yeah, this is, because on my note I say, salient points for noting are highlighted in yellow on the attached submission.
Sorry, Dr. Naidu, you are too fast.
Sorry, sir.
I thought we were starting at page 281. Now I hear you talking about 283.
No, I've migrated you to 283. Starting 281, we've skipped over all that. We've gone to page 283,
Okay.
3.2.1.
Well, we must start first.
Oh.
You must tell me what this document is that starts at
okay.
page
Sorry, Chair.
281. How did it come before you? And
Right.
what was it about? Then you can take me to 283.
Right, Chair. Chair, this is the then we got to go to 279, Chair, a little bit before that.
Yes.
279, this is the minutes of the Special Telephonic Investment and Finance Committee meeting held on 9 December 2015 at 8:30 in the morning.
Yes.
The chairperson had recused, and Dr. Naidu is the acting chairperson.
Yes.
Right, Chair. That's the document, and then the submission, the round-robin submission to the Board of Directors, page 281.
Hang on one second, just for the sake of completeness. What you were reading at 279 was the heading, which is the minutes of that meeting that
Correct.
you mentioned. But let us say what the meeting was about.
Okay.
Matters for approval,
Yes.
point 6.1.
6.1.
Agenda request to approve the
approve
pre-purchase of coal from
Optimum Coal Pty Limited.
Limited.
Correct.
That's what was the subject.
Correct. Just one agenda item.
Okay?
Right? And the submission for that agenda item is on page 281. The round-robin submission to Board of Directors.
Yeah.
Title of submission, pre-purchase of coal from Optimum Coal Mine.
Yes.
Right, Chair, same submission, I'm going to jump and go to page 283 and highlighted 3.2.1. Optimum is formally declared not to be in business rescue as required by the provisions of the Companies Act. See, that's a point highlighted yellow. Then 3.4.1 highlighted yellow. The advance purchase of 1.68 billion will secure a future supply of coal to Eskom. And
I'm sorry, you are reading from 3.4.1.
Yes.
Okay, just start afresh.
The advance purchase of 1.68 billion will secure a future supply of coal to Eskom and will be funded by a reduction of Eskom's coal stockpile from 54 days to 40 days. So that's a benefit there. And 3.4.2, OCM will cede the unsupplied portion of coal under the pre-purchase agreement as security. And then I go across.
What you didn't mention, or unless I missed it, which is important, is to say 3.4 deals with benefits of the advance purchase of coal.
Yes,
And
that's the heading.
And 3.4.1 and 3.4.2 that you have just read fall
the
under
benefits.
that heading, the benefits.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Then, Chair, Chair, let me go a little bit slow. Then 3.6, we talk about risk, including environmental, legal, or contractual risk and other considerations. We go to 3.6.1, operational and supplier risk mitigation by pledge and cession of coal purchased. 3.6.2, the proceeds of 1.68 billion prepayment of coal are to be used by OCM to extinguish existing liabilities to ensure the business continues as a going concern. 3.6.3, the proposed purchaser will lift current empowerment ownership from 30% to 51%. That was the points I highlighted in my note dated 9 December, and this is on 286. 286, Chair? We go the following page. 9 December 2015, Eskom Board of Directors, IFC, Investment Finance Committee proceedings, December 2015, round-robin resolution. Title of submission, pre-purchase of coal from OCM. The resolution as submitted is supported and approved. Salient points for noting are highlighted in yellow on the attached submission document. That's what I just read to you. 1, OCM and the Companies Act. The Board of Director approval will support and allow OCM to migrate from the status of business rescue to that of a going concern. That was very important. Their full rights, responsibilities, and accountabilities will be as per the Companies Act. They plan to use the pre-purchase proceeds to address the liability and liquidity challenge. This will be a positive development both for OCM and for Eskom. It will address the present-day contractual obligations and create the platform for the future sustainability of mutual trade, business, and job continuity for fellow South Africans. Point 2. As part of the proposed solution, OCM undertakes to increase their transformation accountability and responsibility from 30% to 51% ownership. This is a positive development. It is noted and acknowledged. Point 3. The business case for pre-purchase of coal for both Ndrina and Arnott is robust and strong. The cash flows are managed and absorbed by good inventory management of stockpile. The reduced holding days has no risk to electricity production. The profitability of the proposal is noted. The actual gain should be ring-fenced and reported when it is realized. Point 4, Chair. The positive outcome from the joint management solution of Eskom and OCM is noted and acknowledged as a national achievement. It allows for business continuity and security of jobs, the security of electricity production at 2 national key point power stations, Ndrina and Arnott. I am sure South Africa and our customers will send their appreciation. Point 5, Chair. A further recommendation is that the Chairman of Eskom and Chairman of Glencoe jointly communicate this achievement to South Africa and the international community. Thank you, Pat Naidu. Thank you very much, Advocate, for having this.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I couldn't find it, but thank you, sir. It's there. Member of the ISC Eskom Board of Directors.
Well, Mr. Slega, Dr. Naidu skipped quite a lot of things. I think it's important for the sake of completeness, to just go back to the minutes of the Finance and Investment Committee that he referred to.
279.
279, and say, this is the outcome of that meeting.
Yes.
And if the reasons for that outcome are set out there, to articulate them.
Yes.
And this was now, or then the question of the minutes of the board where the approval was given, where would that be?
The board itself.
The board itself, yeah. Because I'm assuming that
This is a recommendation from IFC.
after the Investment and Finance Committee has come to this conclusion, it must, the recommendation or its decision must go to the board for approval.
Correct.
Yes,
Can I read that resolution, Chair, from the minutes?
I will find. I'll find the page.
Oh, you'll find it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chair.
I'll find the page reference because, Chair, the board didn't meet. The board sent approvals by round robin.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's fine. As long as we get to say, here is the formal approval by the board and confirming what was before the board, whether it's the same documents that were before the Investment and Finance Committee.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
I think it's. Yeah, I'll get the page reference for the chairperson.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this question while Mr. Selega is looking at whatever he's looking at, Dr. Naidu.
Thank you, Chair.
Are you able to say, having been part of that telephonic meeting of the Investment and Finance Committee, that the understanding of the committee was that it was recommending approval of this prepayment on the basis that the prepayment was for OCM/Glencoe?
Correct.
You are able to confirm
100%.
that? And you are the chairperson of the committee?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Now, you have said that this executive summary, starting at 281, page 281, served before both the committee as well as the board. When you look at paragraph 2.1.2 on page 281, that is that summary, that submission, for round robin. That paragraph makes it clear that the Group Chief Executive of Eskom, together with the Group Executive for Generation and the Chief Financial Officer, I suspect that those were Mr. Brian Molefe, Mr. Koko, and Mr. Singh, were being authorized to negotiate and conclude a pre-purchase of coal agreement, not with the owners or current owners at the time of OCM, but with the proposed owners. How did you see that at the time?
Yes, Chair, I saw that.
Yes.
Yes.
But if you saw that, how could you and your committee think that you were authorizing prepayment to Glencore, because the proposed owners of OCM were not Glencore?
No, sir. In terms of this, the business rescue practitioners were still present.
Mm-hmm.
So the ownership of OCM was still in that sort of grayish area. But for now, the records state very clearly that the contractual relationship is with Glencore, not with anyone else.
No.
No, but I appreciate that.
I understand that, but I'm saying the words in paragraph 2.1.2
Yes.
were staring you in the face, and they were not saying the request is that you must authorize these three officials of Eskom to negotiate and conclude an agreement with the owners of OCM, owners as at that time. It was saying you were being requested to authorize these three officials of Eskom
Yes.
to negotiate with and conclude a pre-purchase of coal agreement with the proposed owners. Who were
Yes.
the proposed owners at the time?
No, we had no details of that. We had no details of the proposed owners. It was still, in our mind, Glencore is the owner. And in the submission, it states that the proposed purchaser, 3.6.3, proposed purchaser will lift current empowerment ownership from 30% to 51%.
But that makes it worse for your case, because you should be asking, why is this submission all about proposed owners when we are being asked to authorize payment to the current owners?
Let me answer it this way. The agreement, the coal supply agreement, is between two companies,
Yes.
Eskom and OCM.
Yes.
That's it.
And at that stage, it's
That's it.
OCM under Glencore.
Under Glencore. That's
Yes.
it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. That closes. But there's something happening in the background.
Yes.
We don't have details of that. We only stay within the contractual boundaries between Eskom and OCM.
No, but I'm saying to you, how could you think along those lines when in black and white, this executive summary, the round-robin submission that was placed before your committee
Yes, Chair.
and before the board made it quite clear what you were being requested to authorize? That this submission, this summary, did not ask your committee or the board to authorize the three officials of Eskom to conclude an agreement with the owners of OCM. Because if it had said owners of OCM, it would have meant Glencore, OCM, because those were the owners. It said proposed owners.
Yes, Chair.
So I'm asking how you could have, you said you did see this, if I understand.
Yes.
So if you saw this, why didn't you raise an issue to say, hang on, why are you saying we must conclude a contract with proposed owners when they are current owners that we should be dealing with?
Yes, Chair. The contractual, as I said, Chair, the contractual arrangement was still Eskom, OCM. OCM. That's the contract. The contract is not between Eskom and Glencore. The contract is not between Eskom and proposed owners. The contract is not between Eskom, Glencore, and maybe more BE partners. The contract is Eskom, OCM. So that's what we focused on. Eskom, OCM.
But what I'm putting to you, Dr.
I know, I see it, the Chair.
What I'm putting to you is that precisely the point you are emphasizing counts against the decision that you took. It counts against the version you have given that you were intending to authorize prepayment to Glencore stroke OCM. Because that's what I should be saying to you, to say, but why did you not say, change this submission?
Yes.
Because we can't authorize the conclusion of a contract with proposed owners when they are current owners. What we are going to authorize is the conclusion of a contract with the current owners. You must change the submission.
Yes, Chair. You are correct, Chair. That word proposed opens a big door.
And you see, it makes it difficult. It raises the question, how was it possible that X number of members of the Investment and Finance Committee all didn't see this point? How is it possible that the entire board also didn't see this point? Because Dr. Ngubane, I think, also gave evidence along the lines that you have given.
Yes.
But how could none of you say, but hang on, change this submission?
Yeah, it should have been, Chair. I agree with you. Should have read with the existing or current owners of OCM.
Because now...
Because the heading is correct. The title of submission is correct. Pre-purchase of coal from Optimum Coal Mine.
It may well be that somebody might say, well, despite the fact that your committee and the board didn't raise this issue about proposed owners, when you look at the final resolution, maybe it was worded in a way which made it clear that you were authorizing prepayment to Glencore stroke OCM and not to Tegeta. But those who asked your committee and the board to authorize payment would be entitled to say, it was there in black and white, we didn't mislead you, we wrote it there, and you said we should go ahead. But now you're turning around and say, all of you are now saying, but as far as we're concerned, we were authorizing prepayment to Glencore. But they say it's there, it's black and white. How come?
Yeah, you are correct, Chair.
Chair, I found the page reference for the board resolution on the matter. It's in the same Eskom bundle 18 bracket A, page 352.22.
Before the board, can we go back to the Investment and Finance Committee decision? Let's go back and let's see whether there is anything there that suggests that they were not approving what had exactly been placed before them by way of the submission or executive summary. In terms of the outcome, they said something that suggests quite clearly that they were not authorizing what they had been asked to authorize.
Yes, those minutes.
The minutes, Chair.
Yes.
Are on page 279.
279.
279.
And the resolutions on page 280.
Yes. I do have the signed minutes, Chairperson,
Yes,
because those ones are not signed.
yes.
They are further down on page 584.
Okay, just before, I take it that they are the same as...
Same.
They are
Yeah.
the same.
Okay, let me just...
It's recommended that the board approve the transaction as set out in the submission to the board relating to the pre-purchase of coal from Optimum Pty Limited.
Yeah, it does say Optimum Pty Ltd.
Ltd.
On the minutes at 282, 279 and 280, there does not appear to be anything that suggests either way.
Either way, correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And you say I must also look where, Mr. Selega?
The signed minutes, page,
No, it is the same. Chair,
the same.
What Dr. Naidu was reading.
The signed one is exactly the same.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's on page 584.
Yes.
The resolution is the same.
Let me
Page 584.
get there.
thank you.
So the minute starts there on page 584. The resolution is on page 585.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So-
And then let's go to the board
Yes, the
to see, we know it's the same submission that was placed before them. Yeah.
But what Dr. Naidu wanted to draw to your attention, Chair, is
Yeah.
that the resolution does read pre-purchase of coal from Optimum Pty Ltd.
Yes, but
Yes.
that wasn't going to change, isn't it? Because it's a question of whether you talk about optimum coal under Glencore or optimum coal under Tegeta. It's still OCM, but
Still OCM, yeah.
yeah, the
Still
question is
OCM.
under which one?
Yeah, except, Chair, a distinction might have to be made when you add Pty Ltd at the end, because then it relates to the entity.
Changing shareholding.
I beg your pardon?
Changing shareholding,
Yes,
Yes.
it relates to the entity as opposed to the mine itself.
yeah.
But after Tegeta took it over, did it not remain an LTD, but as a subsidiary of, I don't know whether Oak Bay or Tegeta?
I don't know whether they changed the name of the entity, but they purchased shareholding in OCM, and they carried
Yeah.
on calling it OCM. And
I don't remember seeing anything saying they changed the name.
Yeah, because, Chair, the contract is still the supreme document. See, the contract, the coal supply contract, that's the supreme document.
Yeah.
And it still refers
Yeah.
to as OCM.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's a question of who was in control of
Yes.
the entity.
Yes.
Yes.
Was it Glencore or was it? So, but let's go to
The board.
the board's resolution.
That's page 352.22.
3.5,
352.22.
yeah. Okay. Yes.
So it's by round robin, Chairperson. And the resolution required. So what the Chairperson will see there is what was required from the board on the first page, page 352.22. On the next page, and I believe it's Ms. Suzanne Daniels, would have populated the table to indicate which of the board members sent their approvals.
Oh, before that, I'm just looking at the resolution.
Yes.
You see, with the board, their resolution is quite clear because they take paragraph 2.1.2 of the executive summary that I read earlier on. They take it as it is. So what they resolved was in 2.1.2, the group chief executive, together with the group executive for generation and chief financial officer, are hereby authorized to negotiate and conclude a pre-purchase of coal agreement with the proposed owners of OCM, coal supply agreement. Now, the Investment and Finance Committee, when you go to their minutes, as I indicated, it could go either way.
Yes.
But this is clear and categorical. What the board approved
Yes.
was not the conclusion of an agreement, a pre-purchase of coal agreement between the owners of OCM at the time and Eskom, but it authorized the pre-purchase of coal agreement with the proposed owners.
Yes.
So, and you were part of that board.
Yes. That was just a cut and paste across.
Yes.
That's what happened.
And again, and Dr. Ngubane also gave evidence along the same lines as yourself.
Yes.
And what is troubling me is how it is possible for so many members of the board not to have seen what is written here in black and white. That's what is troubling me.
Yes, Chair. Yes, I agree with you, Chair. I agree with you.
The board was about how many people at the time? About 12?
10, 12.
About 12.
Yeah, around there.
And some of the board members were people with high qualifications,
Yes, Chair.
you know.
Yeah, Chair, this is the point where I think trust and integrity comes to the forefront. Chair. You have to have trust and integrity in what you do. Otherwise, it's very difficult because you're working in a high-pressured environment, volumes of work coming through very quickly and coming through in high speed. You need trust and integrity. Without trust and integrity, it doesn't hold together. It comes apart.
Yes, but you see, when you serve in a body such as the board of an entity such as Eskom or any board,
Yes.
you're playing a kind of supervisory role over the executive management.
Agreed.
You have oversight,
Yes, Chair.
and you have to put the interests of the entity at the forefront.
Yes.
Whatever decisions you take, you have got to ask yourself the question, is this decision in the interests of this entity?
Yes, Chair.
You see, obviously, all decisions you take must be lawful and comply with the law. you
Yes.
know. So, I mean, when I read this executive summary for the first time, but now I don't know, maybe he drew my attention to it, but I think I picked up this proposed owners, negotiate and conclude an agreement with proposed owners. That sounded strange, you know. But maybe it was because of the evidence I had had for some time.
Yes.
But it is troubling me that a board members of a board of such an important state entity know that they are being asked to authorize payment to an entity of a very large amount,
Yes,
1.6 billion,
yes.
and they don't take the trouble to make sure that they are authorizing the conclusion of a contract with the right entity.
Yes, Chair.
They don't take the trouble to say, let's make sure that this money goes to the right entity or the right person. It mustn't go to somebody we don't intend.
No, Chair. I think, Chair, I just want to raise this point, Chair. The supreme document, as I said earlier, is the coal supply contract between Eskom and Optimum Coal Mine. The money will go from Eskom to Optimum Coal Mine. That's where it goes. But again, what happens thereafter, Chair?
Hang on. No, Dr. Naidu, and we have been dealing with this point. If the money goes to Glencore and your resolution says it should go to Tegeta, then whoever sends it to the money to Glencore is doing something contrary to your resolution. And they are not allowed to do that. They must comply with the resolution of the board.
Agree, Chair.
You see,
Agree.
there is a great responsibility
Yes.
on the board when it deals with monies and other decisions. And I'm saying particularly when you are being asked to authorize payment of such a large amount from Eskom to somebody else, there is a greater responsibility for you to scrutinize the documents placed before you to make sure that there is proper justification for this money to be authorized, this payment to be made. Is it being, are you authorizing it to be paid to the right person? And so on and so on. And certainly what's in the resolution of the board here suggests to me that, to say the least, the board was very negligent. It may well be that it's much more than that. But I'm not saying that at this stage. And it may well be that within the board, it was negligence on the part of some members, but on the part of some other members, maybe they knew more than others. I don't know, but it is troubling.
Agree.
You accept
I agree
that?
with
Yes.
I
yes.
agree.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Selega, we've gone past quarter past, but
Yes.
I don't know whether you would like to complete the evidence of Dr. Naidu. It depends how much time I'm easy.
Yeah.
Agenda, we continue with him or complete with him if you are not far from finishing.
Yes,
It just depends how much you have covered of what you intended to cover.
I think I've covered sufficient. Yeah, Dr. Naidu, the next question is about the guarantee, because this pre-purchase was not made to either Glencore, in fact, not OCM at all, you know that. Chair, let me gather my thoughts. We could adjourn.
Yes, let's
so I can
adjourn,
finish.
yeah.
It might take
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
that's fine. Let's take the tea adjournment now. It's, we will resume at 22:12. We
Thank you.
adjourn.
Thank you.
pre-purchase of coal agreement with the proposed owners. You did see that's what the submission said. And you didn't raise an issue.
Yes.
But somehow you say you thought that, or your intention was to authorize the conclusion of a pre-purchase of coal agreement between Eskom and OCM as owned by Glencore.
Correct.
Yes. And but if somebody says how you could have thought you were doing that in the light of this clear statement, are you able to explain how you could have thought along those lines in the light of this statement? In other words, I just want to have your explanation.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair, our understanding was that as I said earlier, Chair, the supreme agreements, the coal supply agreement between Eskom and OCM, Optimum Coal Mine, as owned by Glencore. The change of ownership of OCM had not yet occurred.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. I've said what I have to say about that reason. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Selega.
Thank you.
I see that I think we've taken longer than with Dr. Naidoo than you had planned, but that's probably my fault, not yours. I've had quite a number of questions to ask, but I think it was important evidence.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Selega.
Yes, Dr. Naidoo will finish off because let's take it further because you've made, as the board, as IFC, made a decision for a prepayment.
Yes.
And in your understanding, it's a prepayment to OCM owned by Glencore to come out of business rescue, supply to Hendrina, also probably supply to Arnold, and save jobs.
Correct.
That decision is made on the 9th of December 2015. Did the board know what happened insofar as the execution of that decision was concerned?
No, sir.
Did you know that on the 10th, the next day after you've made that prepayment decision, a guarantee was instead prepared? Did you know that?
No, sir.
And that the guarantee was ultimately issued in favor of Tegeta on the 10th of December?
No, sir.
You didn't. Did you ask the executives, okay, we made a 1.68 billion rand decision the other day. What's the position? What's happening?
Chair, there'll be feedback back to the board at the next board meeting. We'll receive feedback. And I think the feedback that we received was to the effect the coal was procured, the coal was used up, and that whole prepayment has been completely absorbed. So we bought the coal in advance, we received the coal, we burnt up the coal, we made electrical energy, and that whole prepayment had concluded. That was basically the feedback. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. So, but did they give you the details of who was supplying coal?
No, no, sir.
No. Okay. There was another prepayment made in April 2016. I know that you haven't dealt with that in your affidavit, but do you know anything about that prepayment of 659 million rand?
No, sir. No, sir.
No. It was a decision of the BTC. Are you saying it didn't come to the board?
No.
It was not reported to the board? Okay. Chair, there was evidence here, and I don't know whether you will know, evidence by Ms. Musilo Motepu on how McKinsey regiments were appointed at Eskom,
No, sir.
would you have
No.
knowledge of meetings that were allegedly held with Mr. Anod Singh prior to him coming to Eskom?
No, sir. I wouldn't have
You wouldn't.
knowledge of that.
Chair, that will conclude my questions for Dr. Petnight. Dr. Naidu says he's a
Thank you.
professor, actually. He says he's actually a professor.
Yes.
No,
Oh,
thank you, Chair.
Okay.
No, thank you, Chair.
Well, you're entitled then to the title of professor. And I think if you were in Germany, you would be called Professor Doctor.
Yes, sir. That's what they say in Germany, yes. But that's fine, Chair.
Thank you very much, Professor Naidu. We appreciate you coming to assist the Commission. You are now excused.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
Chair.
Mr. Selega.
Thank you, Chairperson. The next witness is going to be Ms. Venete Klein. And as per the arrangement yesterday and a request from her, she will testify by video link.
Okay, all right.
So
Do I need to adjourn to allow something to be set up or not necessarily?
I think a 5-minute
if we-
adjournment would be preferable, Chair.
If I adjourn?
The 5 minutes adjournment, yes.
Yeah. Okay, let me adjourn for 5 minutes. We adjourn.
Thank you.
to hear you. Thank you.
And morning, Ms. Klein.
Hi there, Advocate.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Baker. How are you?
Fine, and you, Mr. Mahon?
Good. I'm going to turn my video off so that I don't interfere with the connection, if that suits everyone.
Yeah. Please have Eskom Bundle 2. Eskom Bundle 2. Morning, Ms. Klein.
Yes, hi there. Hello.
Thank you. You have Eskom Bundle 2.
How are you?
Fine.
Good. I'm going to turn my video off so that I don't interfere with the connection, if that suits everyone.
Yeah. Please have Eskom Bundle 2. Oh, there. Eskom Bundle 2. Ms. Klein.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Ms. Klein. I'm not sure, but there's a sound that's coming from the background. I'm not sure who's talking, but we are about to begin.
Is it better now? Is it off?
Ms. Klein, I'm told there's a speaker that is on around where you are. So they're asking if you can turn off those speakers, and only the PC speaker should be on.
Okay.
Only the laptop speaker
Okay,
should
that is off right now. Is it better?
It is better now. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Only the laptop speaker.
Thank you.
Thank
Do you have the right bundle in front of you? You could earlier. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
This is playback.
Are you ready, Mr. Slega?
Yes, Chairperson, we are ready.
Okay. And to announce your next witness.
Thank you. So the next witness is Ms. Venete Klein. She is testifying via video link. She is ready to take the oath or affirmation.
Good morning, Ms. Klein.
Good morning, Chairperson and Advocate.
Welcome back, even though you are not here physically. Welcome back to the Commission, and thank you for coming back to continue with your evidence. Registrar, please administer the oath or affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Venete Klein.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No, I don't.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes, I do.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Klein. Chairperson, we are going to use Eskom Bundle 2. And just before we go into it, Ms. Klein is testifying not for the first time before the Commission. Last time when she appeared, we dealt with the issues of suspensions of the executives, and when we adjourned her testimony, we were dealing with the removal of Mr. Tsotsi and the reasons given by the board for that removal or vote of no confidence. That matter has extensively been traversed, Chairperson. We were from there going to go into the removal of Mr. Norman Baloy, and that would have been the issues in regard to the suspension. It would have covered those issues, and what we would have been left with are the transactions, which is what we've been dealing with now.
Okay. Thank you.
So the bundle, Chairperson, is Eskom Bundle 2. Ms. Klein has provided 3 affidavits so far, and the third of those affidavits deals with the transactions. The first affidavit, the pagination, Chairperson, on my side, because this is an old file, it has a red pagination, only the red pagination. Yes. It changes later on in the file to the black and the red.
You propose to use the red
What?
pagination.
No, I can use the black because the main affidavit we would be dealing with on the transactions has the 2 pagination. But what I wanted to do was, I see the first affidavit doesn't seem to have been admitted as an exhibit.
Yes.
To have them all 3 admitted, and then go to where I need to be.
So the first one, which starts at page
It's
7, black numbers, 2 red numbers.
correct.
That one deals with the suspensions.
That's the suspensions only.
Yes.
And
But will you remember what exhibit number it should have been?
it will be U14.1.
That's what it should have been then.
Correct.
Okay. And she confirmed everything.
She would have confirmed it on the first occasion when she appeared.
Yes.
Ms. Klein, you follow?
I'm trying to, so where are we now? Which page are we now at with it?
Bundle 2, Eskom Bundle 2, page 7, black numbers, or page 2, red numbers. Your first affidavit.
Yeah.
The affidavit that comes
Okay,
first in that bundle. You did confirm
that's correct,
previously.
sir. You got it?
Yes, you did confirm previously that this is your affidavit and that the first signature at page 29, black numbers, page 24, red numbers, is your signature. Is that right?
I'm going there now. 24. That is correct, sir.
Yes.
Yes, okay. You want me to admit it as exhibit U14?
That's exhibit 14, U14.1. Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Venete Klein's affidavit starting at page 7, black numbers, page 2, red numbers, in Eskom Bundle 2 is admitted as exhibit U14.1.
Thank you, Chairperson.
That is together with its annexures.
Correct. The second affidavit is on page, black pagination, 400.1. 400.1. This one is new, Chairperson. Ms. Klein, are you there on page 401, point 1?
Yes, I am.
Yes, between tram lines, you see the words supplementary affidavit by Venete Klein.
That is between the two lines.
Yes, I see that there.
Yes. And go to page 400.5.
Okay, yeah. I'm going there.
There's a signature.
5.
Yes, your name appears.
I got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your name appears there, Venete Klein. Above that is a signature. Do you confirm that to be
Yes,
your
sir.
signature? And the affidavit is dated 18.
That is correct, yes?
Yes. Sure.
Yes.
Can you see us on the screen?
No, I can't actually. I'm seeing myself on the screen, yeah, but can you see me? Oh, there you go. There I see you on the screen now.
Okay. Okay, so the affidavit is dated, is it 18 or 15 January 2021? 18. I think
It's like 18, huh?
Yes, that's 18. You confirm that to be your affidavit?
Yes, that is correct, Chairperson.
Chairperson, I'll beg leave to have this affidavit admitted as Exhibit U 14.2. Together with
The affidavit of Ms. Venete Klein, starting at page 400.1, is admitted as Exhibit U 14.2.
Together with the annexures. Thank you, Chair. That affidavit, just by way of information, deals with issues that arose during Ms. Klein's testimony. So she has filed that supplementary affidavit in order to reduce those issues which were new to writing. Then, Ms. Klein, you turn to page 400.43.
I'm there, Chairperson?
Thank you.
Yes.
That's an affidavit that runs up to page 400.50.
Yes, that is correct, Chairperson.
You confirm at the bottom, above your name there to be
I do.
your signature. The affidavit is
That's
dated.
correct, I do.
Yes, the affidavit is dated 3 February 2021.
Yes, that's correct.
You confirm this to be your affidavit.
I do.
Chairperson, I beg leave to have it admitted as Exhibit U 14.3.
The affidavit of Ms. Venete Klein, starting at page 400.43, is admitted together with its annexures as Exhibit U 14.3.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, we could finish off to the extent is necessary on Ms. Totsi's issues.
Yes, try and cover everything that needs to be covered with Ms. Klein,
Yes.
so that we don't reach a point where she no longer wishes to appear before me. Let's try and cover everything if we can. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Ms. Klein,
I'm not suggesting, Ms. Klein, that you have had enough of the commission.
Thank you very much for your consideration, Chairperson. I appreciate this.
Yes, okay. Mr. Slugger?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Klein, just quickly on the aspect of suspensions, we were dealing with the removal of Mr. Tsotsi, and there was the issue about Mr. Tsotsi having failed to give a report, which he had said was an investigation report available on the basis and being a document on the basis of which the President wanted an inquiry to be conducted. You recall that?
Yes, I do, sir. I do, Chairperson.
Yeah. And those of you board members who came to testify placed some emphasis on his failure to produce that document in order for you to make the decision that was ultimately made.
Correct, sir.
And according to the testimony that we heard, that was one of the reasons why the board took a decision that he should be charged.
Yes.
But the way in which the charges are formulated, one could not find the charge relating to his failure to provide the board with such a report.
Chairperson, at the time when the decision was taken that there was this vote of no confidence in Mr. Tsotsi, what had happened was, in the formulating of the actual charges, the company secretary at that time, Malesela Pakupja, had met with the attorneys who had helped us in the actual drafting of the charges, because there were various charges that was being brought. And it was on the basis of the recordings of the discussion of the 19th that Mr. Malesela Pakupja, together with the attorneys of record at the time, I forget the name, had formulated the actual charges. Those were definitely one of the things that I can talk for myself that made me lose confidence in Mr. Tsotsi. I can't speak for anybody else. But if you say it's not one of the charges was formulated based on the actual recording of what was discussed on that particular day.
Yes. Let me take that further, because you see, at least most of the board members who have provided affidavits to the Commission, they have placed on or set out in their affidavits that when the minister arrived on the 11th of March 2015, the minister essentially repeated what Mr. Tsotsi had said, at least insofar as the inquiry is concerned. But the minister went further and identified 4 areas which he said were of concern to her, and said that the executives in those areas should step aside while the inquiry is ongoing. My question is, did the board ask the minister about the report prior to the board having to take a decision? The report allegedly the board wanted Mr. Tsotsi to produce.
Chair, that's a very difficult question for me to answer. You may recall, I was not at the meeting on the 9th where this, not report, but where the meeting or what had transpired to get this particular resolution from the board was discussed. So when the minister came in, at that point in time, there was, to my knowledge, I did not have any idea about the report. The way I remember that was the report was only discussed at the meeting that transpired after the minister had left.
So, if we accept your recollection that the report, the mention of the report was made only after the minister had left, did you consider as the board whether it was necessary to go back to the minister and say, wait, minister, before we implement what you have put to us, should we not follow due process? Should we not first obtain this report, which Mr. Tsotsi has told us about, and then see whether and how we implement what you have put to us?
Well, Chairperson, I can only talk for myself, but when I heard about the report, like I said, it may have been discussed on the meeting of the 9th, and I'm sure you will test that with other members of the board. But I first heard about that in a discussion when Mr. Tsotsi, after the minister had left, told us how much work had already been done. So I wouldn't have thought it necessary to go back to the minister because Mr. Tsotsi, we effectively now we've heard the minister saying that there's work that now needs to happen to get the company stabilized. If I could just maybe add on, Chairperson, remember we're sitting here in load shedding stage 3. We're in crisis. The minister has told us when she first met us, I think at the end of December, and she told us again, guys, get a handle on the business. Now we're sitting and we're facing an investigation or an inquiry rather, which quite frankly I supported when I heard all about it because I thought it would be a way of really or getting a line in the sand and then understanding what one is dealing with. But the report came up later when, if I remember that correctly, when Mr. Tsotsi was telling us more about what he believed or why he believed, that we need to do this and we need to do this quickly. So I didn't think at the time, personally, I didn't see the need to go back to the minister and talk about the report. But she did not mention the report, Mr. Tsotsi did.
Yeah. Okay, finally on that, didn't the board itself render the report unnecessary? You will recall Dr. Ngubane when, in response to Mr. Norman Baloyi's question, Mr. Norman Baloyi's question to Mr. Tsotsi saying, but Chair, you have said there is a report that exists. Shouldn't we first obtain that report before we make the decisions? Dr. Ben Ngubane's response was that there might be a report out there, but it's not Eskom's report. We must make this decision. It is our decision. And the board ultimately went along with that. Didn't the board itself render the report unnecessary?
Chairperson, on reflection on what the evidence leader is asking me now is, obviously the report was important, to us because it was certainly used as motivation to say, guys, you've got to kickstart the process. But I guess, like I said to you, the charges that were formulated against Mr. Tsotsi was based on the recordings of the discussion of that day, which is possibly why he wasn't charged with it, because it could be like you say. Maybe that was part of the reason he wasn't charged with it, because another board member felt that let's just move ahead and get this done.
Thank you. In regard to Mr. Norman Baloyi, who it seems was a troubled child for the board from the very beginning, can you recall why the board moved for his removal?
Chairperson, I don't think that I actually addressed it in my affidavit at all. Advocate
Yes.
Norrican, sorry. Chairperson, you can help me. I don't think I addressed it in my affidavit, but I'm going to speak from memory, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, if you can, you can say that. Yes, you can if you can remember, but if we need to go and have a look at the document, then we'll have a look.
Yes, okay. Please direct me if there is a document, but I don't think that I addressed it in my affidavit. I don't think that I would have called Mr. Beloy a problem child. Mm-hmm. What I think I myself battled with is that the board would make a decision, and after the board decision was made, and understand how difficult it is as a board member sitting there, not every decision is made in agreement with you. At the end of the day, whether you agree or not, you kind of need to accept that the majority of the board members have made this decision, and then you go with it. You can't constantly be objecting and say, I'm sorry, I don't agree, I don't agree. There are certain times when critical decisions gets made when you do that. But what I battled with personally, and like I said, I'm talking from memory, is that we would agree as a board on various things. We would then, later on the same night, get emails and email trails, and Chairperson, I think you'd be in better place because you've probably got Mr. Beloy's affidavits, where he would then disagree with what the agreement was earlier in the day. I mean, can I give you an example, maybe just to demonstrate the point? On the removal of Mr. Zola Tsotsi, Mr. Beloy, we had gone through an entire discussion, which obviously the attorneys were now going to use to then formulate the charges because we'd lost confidence. Norman Beloy then comes and adds on what he thinks must go into it. And I mean, that made, fulfilling your fiduciary responsibility very difficult to add stuff on after board meetings. And I think that was, you're asking my opinion, I'm talking from my memory and total recollection right now, but I think that for me was a challenge. Chairperson, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I accept.
Continue.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I recognize the disadvantage because you haven't dealt with it in your affidavit. I'm going to move on, Ms. Klein, just by...
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes. Insofar as the board members are concerned, your fellow board members, did you have any relations, any interaction with them prior to your appointment on the board, on the Eskom board on the 11th of December 2014?
No, Chairperson, I did not know one of them. Other than obviously from profiles, I guess the only person that I could say I knew something about was Romeo Kumalu, because I mean, he was a public figure, but beyond that, no.
Yeah, but you didn't know him personally?
No, I've never met him personally.
Any of the Gupta brothers?
No, sir. Never met them.
Did you come to know them during your time serving on the Eskom board? At a personal level?
No, never met any of them. No, never.
Mr. Salim Esa?
Like I said in my affidavit, I was at one of the breakfasts and I was introduced to him. But beyond that, no. Never got to know him personally.
Yeah, what breakfast was this?
It was one of those breakfasts, I think that Eskom was, one of those TNA things. I think so. It was at a particular breakfast. I remember him coming up and introducing himself, that's it.
And you say in your affidavit it was during or about March, April 2015.
Correct, yes.
So you didn't know him before then.
No.
Minister Lynn Brown?
Minister Lynn Brown, Chairperson, I got to know in my job as head of retail bank of ABSA. We had a couple of functions, and because of her profile, she was invited to one or two of them. And that's where, if I remember correctly, the first time I interacted with her personally was with the opening of private bank in the time I was at ABSA. That's the first time I actually got to meet her.
So did you come to know her at a personal level?
No, not since. Obviously, I got to know her better when I became a member of the board of Eskom, because there were always meetings that I was invited to where she was present.
Yes. And the former President Jacob Zuma, prior to your appointment on the board, did you know him personally?
No, I did not. But in my time at Eskom, I also went onto the board of the Reserve Bank, and I attended a meeting with the former president at his residence when we had to go and discuss with him. I was chairperson of the remuneration committee of the Reserve Bank, and as that, I was called upon to go with the governor and one or two other board members to go and discuss the renewal of the contract of one of the deputy governors.
Okay. Now, there's an issue I want to draw to your attention before we go into the transactions, because it's relevant to what I'm dealing with now. And this is what Mr. Koko says in his submission, is an invitation you made to him to come to your home, to your house. You know about that allegation?
Yes, I do, Chairperson.
Yeah. Chairperson, I don't think Chairperson knows about, well, maybe from memory, but I could read to the Chairperson to put the Chairperson on the same page just before you respond to that allegation.
Yeah, okay, please do.
It's in Eskom Bundle 15. Eskom Bundle 15, bracket B, on page 1039. Ms. Klein, I know I've provided you with this affidavit or submission.
Yes, and we tried.
Yeah,
Thanks, Chairperson. I'm just trying to put it up on the screen myself, but it's okay. You can go ahead and read it.
I'll just read what he says there. Page 10, Eskom Bundle 15, bracket B, page 1039, the black pagination, Chairperson, paragraph 147, is Mr. Koko's submission to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee. Paragraph 147 says, Ms. Klein has in the proceedings before the Portfolio Committee attempted to put me in a bad light because she harbors resentment against me as a result of the fact that I had refused to assist her husband, Mr. Harold Klein, to procure a project management contract for his company in respect of the conversion of Eskom's diesel-driven OCGT generation plants to gas-driven plants. Paragraph 148. On page 1040, Ms. Klein, during the second week of January 2017, after I had been appointed interim GCE, phoned me and requested that I should meet with her at her home in Mooikloof, Pretoria. She stated that she had a private issue that she wanted to discuss with me. I complied with the request and met with Ms. Klein at her home on Saturday, 14 January 2017. Her husband participated in the meeting. They informed me that they had a problem, and Ms. Klein said that she needed me to solve it. They explained the problem as being that Dr. Klein's company had tendered for project management contracts on the conversion of the OCGT units to GES project, but was not getting the jobs. Ms. Klein, what is OCGT?
Open cycle gas turbines. Sorry, I'm not the technical person. Please, so just, yeah. Open cycle gas turbines.
Okay. I carry on reading. Ms. Klein said that she had taken her Absa pension money and had invested it in her husband's business, and he now could not get Eskom contracts due to her being a director of Eskom, while his competition was getting these. His competition was getting these irregularly. Ms. Klein stated that she wanted me to do something about it. I was surprised by what she put across because it was contrary to every Eskom rule regarding conflicts of interest. I informed her and husband that I had no knowledge of the intricacies of the conversion project at that time or any irregularities in relation to the awarding of tenders in respect thereof. I told her that I would, however, look into the matter. I then phoned Dr. Klein on, I believe, Monday, 16 January 2017, and arranged a meeting with him. I, for purposes of the meeting, called in Eskom's chief audit officer, as well as members of the OCGT gas conversion project team. I introduced Ms. Klein to them, Mr. Klein to them, when he arrived and asked them to hear him out regarding his complaints. I then stepped out of the meeting. Ms. Klein's attitude towards me changed from that time. She must have expected that I would cause the contracts that had allegedly been irregularly awarded to be channeled to her husband. Ms. Klein, can you comment on that?
Chairperson, let me ask you, do you have my supplementary affidavit that was, after that had been presented to Parliament? I put through an affidavit to Parliament dealing with the exact matter. Do you have that in front of you as well? I mean, I can talk you through it, but I'm just asking, do you have that? Because it was sent to the Commission.
Chairperson, I received the affidavit from Ms. Klein. We have it, but it hasn't been incorporated in the bundle yet.
Well, do you want to do that now so that it's in when any reference is made to it, we know it's in?
We could certainly do so, Chair.
Or you don't have enough copies?
I think one of my investigators will run copies for me.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
let that be done. It would be better.
I'm happy to respond, Chairperson, in the meantime.
Yeah, just respond, and then when the affidavit comes, we can see whether you wish to add anything.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Chairperson. Chairperson, I refute Mr. Koko's version completely. Let me put it to you this way. I know that this is not a light matter, but, in front of this very commission, I was literally accused of bringing Mr. Koko back, or literally on my own volition, which obviously is not true. So why would I wait literally 15 months to ask Mr. Koko for business for my husband in the first place, would be my response. But now let me just deal with the matter that the evidence leader put to me. The reason Mr. Koko was called, and he wasn't called to my house, my husband was on a panel of project managers that had been appointed by Eskom in that time. So it's not like I wasn't asking for work for my husband. My husband had been appointed as a project manager because he holds a doctorate in civil engineering. So he was appointed as a specialist, if you will. During that time, in fact, before Mr. Koko became the acting CEO, my husband's company, and by the way, you can go and check all the conflicts of interest. I have recorded that time after time that he was on this particular panel. He was then given a piece of work to provide Eskom with a number of civil engineers for particular work that needed to get done. When he provided the CVs of the people, those were just not good enough. It was struck off. Whilst all this toing and froing was happening, my husband got a call from somebody by the name of Gavin Shear, or if my memory serves me correctly, I'm talking from memory here now, Gavin Shear, who said something like this to my husband. He said, look, I'm working for Eskom. Your company has been given the opportunity now to find these specialists to work on OCGTs, but this is how it's going to go. And please excuse me if I don't get the numbers right, because I'm talking purely from memory now. What it said was, or what he said to Harold was, the total that you're going to get paid was something like 1,500 an hour, but the total that you will get as a company is 100 Rand, and I'll keep the 1,400 because I'm already here, and you will just get the 100 Rand per hour. Obviously, because I was a board member, my husband came to me and said, what do you think of this? I said, well, this is nothing short of fronting. He said, so what do we do with it? I said to him, I don't know what to do with it, but let's try and escalate it within Eskom. I was not going to take it to the board because I did not consider it a board-related matter. It was an operational issue. That all happened at the time when Mr. Koko became the acting CEO. Mr. Koko was asked to speak to my husband in that particular week because everything came to a head just after Christmas. I think that was January 2017. To speak to Mr. Koko, but because he couldn't make it, he was busy, obviously, acting as CEO, and my husband couldn't make it. It ended up that the meeting happened to be at my home. That was the reason that he came there. To point out the fronting which he, as the CEO, had to go and investigate. Now, on the Monday, following that particular Saturday, there was a meeting and a whole host of people were called to the meeting. Obviously, I wasn't part of it. But there was an investigation done, and Mr. Koko did call forensics, audit and forensics, and a whole range of other people. And as part of my submission to Parliament with my version versus Mr. Koko's version, I attached a copy of that report, which had been redacted, which I'm sure that the Commission could call and just see if it was about, if the meeting with my husband was about work for my husband's company, which, by the way, he'd already been allocated, but it was a whole fronting arrangement, or whether it was because he was there to get more work from Mr. Koko.
Okay.
Chairperson, I hope that brings some clarity to the point that evidence leader has raised.
Yes.
Mr. Selega?
Yes, no, it does. We will have a look at the report as well. I know you've given me the affidavit, but I don't think it has any attachment to it. But we can arrange after the hearing.
It was apparent. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We can look. Apparently, it was sent advocate, but we can certainly make sure that all other things will be sent to you as well if you don't have it. All right.
Okay. Thank you. Now, let's go into the affidavit on transactions, the evidence that you set out there. And we start first and foremost with this cooperation.
I'm sorry, you say the evidence she sets out where?
She sets out in the affidavit, Exhibit U 14.3.
Okay. Thank you.
Which is Eskom Bundle 2, page 400.43.
Bundle 15, won't be necessary anymore, or will it come back?
It won't be necessary anymore. That's the extent to which I needed to refer to.
Yeah. Okay, you may continue.
Thank you. So we are back in your affidavit. Eskom Bundle 2, page 400.43. Ms. Klein, I would like you, let's deal with the cooperation agreement and the fourth addendum, which was concluded between Eskom and OCM, owned by Glencore at the time, in 2014. That cooperation agreement is intended to make certain changes to the agreement that then existed between Eskom and OCM in order to increase, first and foremost, the price of coal OCM was selling, the price at which OCM was selling coal to get Eskom. The cooperation agreement came to the BTC for consideration on the 13th of April 2015. You were not a member of the BTC, correct?
That is correct.
The BTC did not decide the matter, it referred the matter to the board. The board had a meeting in Cape Town on the 23rd of April 2015. You recall that?
I do, Chairperson.
At this meeting, apparently this matter came to the board's attention also for decision making. And we understand that the matter was not decided by the board as well, but that the board referred the matter to Mr. Brown Molefe. You recall that?
That is correct. Yes, I do.
Now, Mr. Brown Molefe's approval, approval for his secondment was only made in that meeting of the 23rd by the board. And the approval being made with effect from the 20th of April 2015.
Correct.
Can you tell the chairperson what were the board's reasons for, well, before I ask that question, let me ask you this one. Who would have requested that the matter be referred to Mr. Molefe instead of being decided by the board?
That is correct, Chairperson.
Yeah, but who would have suggested on the board that the matter be referred to Mr. Molefe instead of being decided by the board? Can you recall?
No, I don't. As I said in my affidavit, I don't recall who made it, but I can certainly tell you why I supported it, if that's going to be your next question.
Yes, you can go into it.
All right. Chairperson, what was being brought to the board was something that, to my mind, at the time, management, after having taken it to BTC, where for some reason or other it was not concluded, brought it to the board. But in drilling down, I mean, I don't have all the details because I didn't sit at BTC, but if I try and remember this thing, questions such as extending the tenure of a particular contract was one. The price increase going from, I think, 115 to 400 odd. When questions were being asked of management, and me listening to this, because like I said, I wasn't part of the original discussion at BTC, management didn't seem to have the answers. So when somebody proposed that this gets given as an operational matter back to the the acting CEO at the time, I did not see that as a major problem. I thought it was probably the best thing because management clearly didn't have all the answers. Also remember that the tenure of that current transaction was until 2018. And we were talking about 2015. So it wasn't something that, according to my mind, needed to be dealt with immediately. Just by way of reference, if I can just step back a minute, if you'll allow me. Remember, we were sitting with load shedding, stage 3, we were sitting without money. We had so many balls in the air that for me, something that didn't need to be decided today probably is okay. If management haven't got the answers, take it off the table and let's deal with the critical matters that we could deal with. So that is why I would have supported that.
Yes. When you say there were questions that management didn't answer or couldn't answer, did the board specifically raise questions with management? But I don't want to say management.
My recollection is that...
Can I narrow it down to the team that was negotiating the cooperation agreement and the fourth addendum? Did management raise questions with this team?
Sorry, are you... back and do more work on.
Yeah. Well, I have put this version to Mr. Andre van Heerden, who is preparing an affidavit for the Commission. And which will be provided to you in due course, but let me say what he says and hear your view. He said the team that negotiated and presented to BTC was not called to present, to do the same in respect of the board, and did not receive any questions from the board on the matter. So that's why I'm asking you, whether do you personally know that questions had in fact been raised with that team?
Chairperson, sorry, Advocate, you broke up just slightly there. So you said somebody who had dealt with it? You'd asked this question of somebody else? I didn't get that.
Yes, I said Andre is actually Mr. Johan Bester. Yeah, it's actually Mr. Johan Bester, who was involved in the negotiation. He testified previously before the Commission. He said, although they did the presentation at BTC, they were not invited to do the same for the board, and that they did not receive questions from the board in regard to the cooperation agreement and the proposal made by OCM. Hence my question to you, whether do you personally know that the board had raised questions with the negotiating team?
Chairperson, obviously, now I don't know what Mr. Bester, I didn't listen to his testimony, but let me put it to you this way. It would not be unusual that the negotiating team doesn't get called. I mean, that's why we've got ex-officio members of the board. I would imagine at the time, whoever was presenting it, and it would probably, if memory serves me correctly, have been the acting CEO at that time, would have probably have been the one fending the questions. I can't, like I said, I don't remember, I can't tell you who was in the room exactly. But if he says he wasn't there, then clearly the questions was not asked of him.
Yeah. As we understand from your affidavits and the affidavits of other board members, the matter was referred to Mr. Molefe for the purposes of him getting information and giving feedback to the board. Is that also your understanding?
That's correct. Correct, Chairperson.
We have, as the legal team, have seen from other board members' affidavits that they have no recollection of Mr. Molefe reporting back on the matter to the board. What is your recollection?
My recollection, Chairperson, is that I picked it up, I think it was something under legal in the month of September. That's where I picked up the next, where I picked it up next. I'm not sure I've not read, I haven't had the benefit of reading through the affidavits of any of the other board members, but I remember seeing it for the first time in September, and it was under legal when it looked like this had already progressed quite far.
Yes. Chairperson, what Ms. Klein is referring to is on page 400.55. Ms. Klein, you may want to turn there. But now this is in September 2015.
That is correct, Chairperson.
Before we get to, and you will see Chairperson under 6.3, but before we go to that, Ms. Klein, let me ask you this. Did you know that Mr. Molefe had terminated the cooperation agreement and negotiation process with OCM in July 2015?
No, Chairperson, I was not aware.
You were not aware. So then we come to September, and you call it a report of the Chief Executive Officer. Are you on that page, 400.55?
It was the legal report. Yes, that is correct, Chairperson.
Is that under paragraph 6.3?
That's correct, yes, it's the legal update. The CEO report, but it was the legal update.
Okay, there is a heading there. After the first paragraph, there is a heading, Optimum Coal Mine Proprietary Limited and Optimum Coal Holdings Limited.
That's correct, yes.
Is that the paragraph there under? Is that what you want to refer the chairperson to?
Yes, that is the one I'm referring to.
Yeah. As where you picked up that he was reporting back to the board.
Effectively, because that was his report back to the board. So yes, that is the one I'm referring to.
I've read this paragraph, and the reporting is not of the kind that I thought he was required to do. In fact, here, it's a report that the negotiations have been terminated, as opposed to, I have obtained information, and these are the facts. Let's decide how to go forward with the matter.
Okay.
What is your comment on that?
Chairperson, not being a technical person myself, I was, at that stage, it did not look strange to me at all. I mean, he's giving feedback. Remember, the contract that was brought to us in April spoke about something that was happening at one of the, with one of the suppliers of coal, and they were asking for more money, and they were asking for an extension of tenure. So when I looked at this, I didn't at that stage think that there was anything strange with it. Obviously, now with the benefit of hindsight, I now realized I should have asked a lot more questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, but let me hear your answer to this. I accept that with the benefit of hindsight, you realize that you should have asked more questions. What I was saying to you is, if the board's decision on the 23rd of April 2015 was for him to get information and come back to the board, report back to the board, what is happening here in September is not that kind of reporting. In fact, what he's telling you is that he's terminated the negotiations with OCM.
My response to that would be very simple, Chairperson, maybe simple to me, but maybe you'd see something else there, is that remember we've got board subcommittees. You remember on the matters of the suspensions because of me serving on PNG, you really, asked me for many answers. I expected when I looked at this that this would have been dealt with at one of the subcommittees. So it didn't come across as strange to me that this is here or that he should have. I did expect he would come back, but I mean the fact that he didn't and it was here and none of the other board members raised it, I didn't find that as being strange at the time.
Yes, but isn't that problematic? Because BTC, which is a subcommittee of the board, had specifically referred the matter up to the board. And the board, not the BTC, or any subsidiary committee of the board, made a decision to refer it to Mr. Molefe on the basis that he will obtain information and come back to the board, but not to make the decision that he made.
Now, I do hear you, Chairperson, and I'm giving you, if you're saying to me it is problematic, I accept that it is. I understood this at the time, because remember we're sitting with BTC members in the board, that if this was in the incorrect approach, or this was wrong, that it then would have been flagged as wrong. It was when you asked all the questions that I went back to go and reread it, that I realized that this is the first time it actually came back to the board. And I'm not trying to trivialize the matter, but rather to say to you that, as board members, we were sitting with many irons in the fire, dealing with many things at the time. Now, today, when I look at it, and obviously having heard everything, I realize we should have asked, I should have asked more questions here. Yeah. So you say it's problematic, I accept that it is.
Yes, but because you see, the impression Ms. Klein created, and you would know from the investigation by the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee or the oversight role they played, the impression created is that Mr. Molefe was brought to Eskom for a particular purpose. And that purpose, on the face of it, appears to be to assist the Gupta brothers in order to obtain contracts with Eskom. Do you have any comment on that?
Other than what I've heard in the media and obviously what has played out in terms of the commission, I can understand how you could tell me that this is problematic. Further than that, I cannot comment, because at the time when this happened, I did not think that it was irregular, because remember, in my mind, being a non-technical person, we are talking about something that was supposed to only have been decided in 2018. So I didn't attach any, it's got to be decided now. But with the benefit of having listened to, different evidence pieces, and certainly the kind of questioning that you put to me, I can understand how you can see this as problematic. I see it as problematic now.
Yeah. But what is also more troubling is that the impression is created that the board also created an enabling environment for that ulterior purpose to be achieved. I mean, as the chairperson earlier said, some board members may not have known, maybe acted, to say the least, negligently. There might have been other board members who knew what was happening as an ulterior motive, the real purpose for making certain decisions. But I'm just putting that to you so that you can comment to the chairperson that the more troubling issue is that the board, which is the gatekeeper, or should have been the gatekeeper, in the exercise of his fiduciary duties, making decisions of this nature, that you nonetheless created an enabling environment for some of these decisions to take place. Your comment?
It's actually very difficult to even... Sorry?
Yes, your comment.
Sorry.
Proceed.
Obviously, when I look at things today, it looks very different to what it looked like back then. If you were to ask me directly whether I was involved or I knew, my answer to that is no. If you were to ask me, did I see myself as enabling this? All I can say to you is, as board members, I can talk for myself. We were dealing with so many different things coming at us. Load shedding was still an issue. We were dealing with lack of money. It was just coming from all angles. So it's very difficult to say, who may have known what, other than what I knew. So, yes, I understand, and I do hear you when you say, this is what emerges, but I can't really comment on that because I was part of the board, and should I have asked more questions on that? Now I know that I should have. But way back then, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
We need to take the lunch break. It's 1 o'clock.
Yes.
We're going to take the lunch break and we will resume at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair.
We
Thank you.
adjourn.